So why would you do anything other than do the same acquisition at one times revenue of something that's hyper growing monopoly, growing 30% a year? We've done that like 77 times or something, right? So when I look at M&A, I think the perfect M&A partner is Bitcoin. You have a chance to buy the dominant digital monetary network growing 30% a year for the next 20 years with zero risk and keep doing the trade over and over and over again. Yeah. Why would you ever do anything else?
마이크로 스트래티지의 CEO 마이클 세일러가 비트코인의 미래와 전략에 대해 깊이 있는 인터뷰를 진행했습니다. 1시간이 넘는 대화 속에서 그는 비트코인에 대한 철학과 앞으로의 전망을 솔직하게 풀어냈는데요. 지금부터 그 핵심 내용을 함께 확인해 보시죠.
I want to talk a little bit about some of the FUD or the critics. There's some skeptics out there. Some might call them haters of strategy and kind of the work that you do. Is there a critique or a misunderstanding of your work that kind of stands out?
I think when an airfoil moves faster than the speed of sound, like an airplane goes faster than the speed of sound, it creates a shock wave. And a sonic boom. And it's very loud, it's very noisy, it's very turbulent. And what's going on when you're going faster than the speed of sound is you're going faster than the rate at which air can communicate to the air in front of it, right? The molecules in front of your fuselage are not able to communicate to the molecules 100 meters in front of you. So you end up with this sonic boom and massive turbulence and massive noise and chaos. What's going on with Bitcoin is evolving faster than a society can digest it. And so I think you could say this is all consistent. Bitcoin was misunderstood in the year 2011. It was misunderstood by me in the year 2013. It was misunderstood again in 2015, 2017, 2019, 2021. When we first got into the space in 2020, there were people that misunderstood it, and we had massive amount of criticism when our stock was $10 a share. When our stock went to $100 a share, it was massive amount of criticism again. When it crashed to $20 a share, there was still massive criticism. When we had $2 billion of Bitcoin, people were cackling, or $1 billion, saying, "Oh, you lost $1 billion on this." When we made $100 billion, everybody disappeared and slunk into the shadows. And then a new set of trolls, a new set of critics came out when our market cap went above 100 billion. It's a different set of cynics, a different set of critics, a different set of misconceptions. I think you're going to see the ebb and flow of that set of misconceptions and that anxiety. It'll continue when Bitcoin is 100,000. It'll continue when Bitcoin is 1 million. It'll continue when Bitcoin is 10 million. It'll continue when Bitcoin goes to 20 million. And there's always going to be a new narrative of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. It'll be a different generation. The people that used to laugh and say, "Oh yeah, you lost $1 billion trading in Bitcoin," they're gone. They disappeared, right? There'll be a new generation of people that say, "Do you think it makes sense to buy Bitcoin at $1 million a coin? It's going to trade down to 500,000, right?" And then there'll be a set of people that will say, "You're buying it at 10 million a coin. It's going to trade to 6 million. You moron! You lost so much money." This is how societies deal with new ideas. If you study paradigm shifts, how long did it take to embrace electricity? How long did people thought John D. Rockefeller was crazy for 30 years until he was the richest man in the world. And then and at the point that he was the richest man in the world, people thought, well, that trade is done. And that was just when they invented the automobile and he got 10 times richer, right? And so the society doesn't really deal with paradigm shifts that well in near term, but after 30, 40, 50 years, you look back and you say, well, of course we should have embraced the fire, the electricity, the wheel, the crude oil, the nuclear, even nuclear power right now, for example. Nuclear power has only become cool or useful in the last 2 years. Okay. So for 50 years, people thought nuclear power was an awful thing. And all of a sudden they woke up and they realized that I guess we need nuclear energy to power the AI data centers to make us super intelligent. And if we don't turn it on, we're going to be slow and stupid. So, if it took them 50 years, by the way, nuclear power is like unlimited, clean, free energy. And they had to fight for 60 years to get people to embrace the idea of unlimited clean energy. It doesn't surprise me that there'll be skeptics about digital energy. They won't get it.
If corporations hold a large share of the Bitcoin, what does that mean for the average person? How do you, avoid crowding out small users?
Well, when we got involved, Bitcoin was trading $9,000 a coin, and today Bitcoin's $115,000 a coin. And it got that way because our company bought 3%, and BlackRock enabled institutions to buy like 4%. And that means that 93% of the gain, and that's 93% of nearly $2 trillion. So $1.8 trillion went to the individuals that owned the Bitcoin before the corporations got involved. So the individual's not been crowded out. The individual just, if you posit that individuals, were the ones that owned the Bitcoin in the year 2020, then those individuals made $1.8 trillion since the corporations got involved. So the corporations aren't crowding out the individuals. The corporations are making the individuals that believed in Bitcoin insanely wealthy. And now the individuals can decide what do they want to do with that economic power, right? And they'll do whatever. As a practical matter, it seems to me that for our company, if we were to ever get to 5% of the network's going to be at least $1 million a coin. If we were to go beyond it, it's going to 10 million a coin. So when we get to 7% of the network, if we do, and Bitcoin is $10 million a coin, and if BlackRock keeps up with us, that means 85% of the network, right? And you're going to be talking about $200 trillion. So you're going to have $170 trillion that will flow to the individuals. So they're not exactly getting crowded out, right? If anything, what you've got is the corporations are all engines turning the flywheel of the Bitcoin economy. Every single company, every Bitcoin treasury company that capitalizes on Bitcoin is like attaching a motor to the network. And every time that company buys $50 million worth of Bitcoin, they spin that drive shaft one turn. That's one day's natural supply, right? And so the more companies that come on, whether it's BlackRock or whether it's Strategy or whether it's MetaPlanet or whether it's 21 or whether it's BSTR, or whether it's similar, whoever it might be, each one of them is firing up a motor. All of the motors are powering up the network. If you're an individual and you believe in Bitcoin, you buy the Bitcoin, you cold storage the Bitcoin, and you let all the companies power up the network. If the companies didn't show up and the network was all individuals, Bitcoin would be trading $5,000 a coin.
No.
And here's the problem. It wouldn't just trade at $5,000 a coin.
마이클 세일러는 비트코인에 대한 비판과 오해를 패러다임 전환 과정의 소음으로 설명합니다. 비트코인은 사회가 감당할 수 있는 속도보다 빠르게 진화하고 있어 끊임없는 논란이 따른다는 것이죠. 그는 2011년부터 지금까지 비트코인은 반복적으로 오해를 받아왔고 가격이 오르든 내리든 비난은 사라지지 않았다고 말합니다. 하지만 역사를 보면 전기, 석유, 원자력 같은 혁신도 수십 년간 거부와 불신을 겪은 뒤 받아들여졌습니다. 따라서 디지털 에너지로서의 비트코인 역시 초기에는 회의론이 뒤따른다는 것이 당연하다는 입장입니다. 또 기업들이 대량으로 비트코인을 보유하면 개인이 밀려난다는 우려에 대해서도 그는 반박합니다. 기관의 참여가 가격을 끌어올렸기 때문에 개인 투자자들이 오히려 막대한 부를 얻게 되었다는 것입니다. 실제로 기업이 참여하지 않았다면 비트코인은 지금도 개당 $5,000 수준에 머물렀을 것이라고 그는 강조합니다. 결국 기업은 네트워크의 모터 역할을 하며 비트코인 경제를 가속화시키고 그 혜택은 개인에게 돌아간다는 것이 세일러의 핵심 메시지입니다. 그리고 혹시 거래 수수료 절반을 다시 환급받는 방법 아직 모르시나요? 단 5분만 투자하면 평생 수수료 돌려받는 셀퍼럴 선택이 아닌 필수입니다. 자세한 내용은 영상 더보기란을 확인해보세요.
So as things kind of continue to play out, the game theory is interesting. It's compelling. How do you think about the future when it comes to maybe consolidation or M&A opportunities with Bitcoin treasury companies in a significant drawdown? Is strategy sort of the buyer of last resort in these scenarios?
No, here's what I tell everybody. I expect Bitcoin to go up 29% a year on average for the next 21 years, right? I'm expecting $21 million Bitcoin in 21 years. So I expect Bitcoin to appreciate 21% a year thereafter. The risk-free rate is 29%. If I do nothing, take no risk. If you're in the Bitcoin network, every single investment idea you consider has got to return more than 29%, plus a risk premium, plus another premium for the headache. And even if you did that, there's a diversification discount. And the thing you got to keep in mind, and when you're running a public company, is there is a diversification discount. If people look at my company and they say 100% of the risk and 100% of the return is levered to Bitcoin, it's a very easy business model. You can go to our website, you can crank in the Bitcoin volatility, the Bitcoin ARR, the Bitcoin price, and it spits out the risks, the fair credit spread, everything. It's very simple. You can update it every 15 seconds. If we were to go and buy another company, buy X billion-dollar company that we think was 40% undervalued, now it takes like an hour for someone to figure out whether that's right and wrong, and it takes 10 years for them to know we were right or wrong. Okay, you've just created a diversification discount. You've turned something which was transparent, where I know exactly what I'm getting in 15 seconds, to something where if I believe you after an hour, maybe it's better, but how many ideas do you have that are guaranteed to return 40% a year for the next 20 years?
No.
Like I've never seen a public company that ever did an acquisition that promised 40% return every year for 20 years, right? So when you think about Bitcoin, the right way to think about it is you're a public company. You have $1 billion of capital. You have an option. You could go buy $1 billion of Bitcoin at 1 times revenue, and it's growing 55% a year. You can buy something growing 55% a year at 1 times revenue.
Right.
And all of your investors already understand it and support it. Long term, you can buy something that's going to grow 29% a year, no risk, no integration headache. You can buy something growing nearly 30% a year at 1 times revenue, and all of your investors back it. Right? There's no one holding our equity that doesn't believe in Bitcoin, you see?
Right.
They're all Bitcoin maximalists. So why would you do anything other than do the same acquisition at 1 times revenue of something that's hyper growing monopoly, growing 30% a year? We've done that like 77 times or something, right? So when I look at M&A, I think the perfect M&A partner is Bitcoin. You have a chance to buy the dominant digital monetary network growing 30% a year for the next 20 years with zero risk and keep doing the trade over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Why would you ever do anything else?
마이클 세일러는 비트코인 트레저리 기업들의 인수 합병 가능성에 대해 자신들의 전략은 최종 매수자가 아니라 비트코인 자체를 최고의 M&A 파트너로 삼는 것이라고 말합니다. 그는 앞으로 21년간 비트코인이 연평균 29% 상승하고 장기적으로도 매년 20% 이상 성장할 수 있다고 전망합니다. 따라서 다른 투자 아이디어가 의미 있으려면 이보다 높은 수익률을 보장해야 하지만 현실적으로 그런 기회는 거의 없다고 강조합니다. 또 상장사의 경우 복잡한 기업 인수는 다각화 할인을 불러와 오히려 가치를 떨어뜨릴 수 있습니다. 반면 비트코인은 매출 대비 1배 가격에 매수할 수 있는 초고성장 자산이며 이미 투자자들이 이해하고 지지하는 단순한 모델입니다. 결국 세일러가 보는 최고의 인수합병 대상은 다른 회사가 아니라 비트코인 그 자체라고 할 수 있습니다.
And if you're a Bitcoin maximalist, your risk-free cost of capital is 29%. If that's what you believe Bitcoin's going up at for the next 20 years, and that's what I believe, most people don't have a risk-free rate of 29%. There's a lot of a fiat maxi in Switzerland. Their risk-free rate is minus 50 basis points, you see. So other companies will have other cost of capitals and other outlooks because of their frame of reference. They will actually do those transactions.
Well, you just keep buying Bitcoin there. That makes sense.
오늘 영상 도움이 되셨다면 구독, 좋아요 부탁드립니다. 감사합니다.